I have returned with episode 86, Party People, of Where My Killer Tape At. I'm going to talk about trolls, and the main one is Charlemagne, and whether the Breakfast Club is anti-black. I'm also going to talk about Clifford again, and your man Yeezy. I'm going to do a spoiler-free review of a Mandalorian episodes 1 and 4, which is found on Disney Plus, and also on Malcolm Gladwell's latest book, Talking to Strangers. Check it out.
I like how this one felt. Good.
Yo, where my killer tape at, B? For episode 86 of Where My Killer Tape At, I am sipping on hot toddies using Bacardi dark rum. You know how I get down. Word is born. And I use some teas, honey, and sometimes I put lemon juice, but sometimes I just do it without the lemon juice because the teas are strong enough. So I know technically that's not a hot toddy, but that's how I do it. Word. Sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. So I was chilling on Twitter and I came across this article which I had to like check, and there's like several sources anyway, but this one came from CBS News, and how back in 1994 a studio executive wanted Julia Roberts to play Harriet Tubman. Like, that's real fucking talk. Like, you're like, wow. And here's wow, because um they were like somebody actually was like, and I know in 1994 you ain't have Google. I get it, but and this is it's funny because this is where when I talk to white people about this, I'll be like, this is how white supremacy works. White supremacy is I have to know your history, but white people don't gotta know ours. Like this, and this is one of the things, right? But you would think that white people know who Harriet Tubman is, like, and you know there was like a big debate on whether she's gonna be on a $20 bill. So, but then again, white supremacy is not logical. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work in logic. So, but someone really actually sat and thought that, like, and like, oh, let's make a Harriet Tubman movie, and yo, by golly gee whiz, let's let Julia Roberts play Harriet Tubman, right? And it's just, now what they're saying is there was somebody sitting in executive room, a black person, who was like, yo, you can't do that because Harriet Tubman was black, like. And I wish I was there. I was at that time. I wish I was like a fly on the wall and I could hear this kind of shit. But again, the truth is stranger than fiction. Is wild. Like, to hear this kind of story, I'd like to know who that executive is. Like, I really would like to know who that was. Shout out to my book club that didn't know our book club. I know I'm gonna shout them out again, but we just finished reading Malcolm Gladwell's latest book, Talking to Strangers. And if you don't know who Malcolm Gladwell is, he's a public intellectual. He makes the rounds all the time. He actually has a podcast, which it's okay. It's just, I don't know, sometimes his voice gets monotone, and I listen to some of his books on audiobook format, and I guess as I'm used to hearing his voice, I can do it. But a lot of people tell me that his voice sounds boring. But his podcast is interesting. I don't listen to it as much as I should. But anyway, I think this is like his fifth book. And he's written other books that are really good, like The Tipping Point and Blink. And I always recommend reading him. This one, he talks about what we know about strangers. Like, that's the question he asks about how there are a lot of us who claim that we can tell people just as, who we can tell who they are or how they get down immediately as we meet them, and how a lot of times that fails us, particularly when it comes to judges, police officers, lawyers, FBI agents, CIA agents, right? So he pretty much puts them under the microscope. Now, the book is actually really dope. There's some chapters where I feel like he went over the top. Because in the beginning, he asked the questions, what happened to Sandra Bland? And if you remember who Sandra Bland was, that was a young woman who was found dead in her cell after she was arrested for not signaling to turn lanes. But anyway, he tries to answer that question, and he feels like he knows what the problem is. Now, the reason why I like Malcolm Gladwell is because he's a scientist, right? He takes information, he takes data, he deciphers it for us, and he interprets it for us. And he always has interesting stuff to talk about. He uses several cases. He discusses the Sandusky case from several years ago, the Penn State coach who was molesting young boys. He uses the Nassar case, and Nassar was a physician who worked for the Olympic gymnastics team, and he was sexually assaulting several of his patients who happened to be young girls, sometimes in the presence of their parents. Yes, their parents were sitting in the room when he did this. And then he also discusses the young lady that was the Amanda Knox case, and he talks about that. The first thing he talks about initially is he talks about this experiment that someone did where they had someone come in and take a test. They said, if you take this test, it's a test of trivia questions, just like pop culture questions and stuff like that. And they put you in a room with someone else who's part of the program, and the proctor will leave the room for one reason. And then the person who's in the plan will try to convince the other person to cheat because he answers her on the desk. Half the people cheat. 30% of the people cheat. So then they take 25 people who didn't cheat, 25 people who cheated, and they put them on video, and they ask judges and police officers and everything to figure out who's lying. Of course, judges end up getting it wrong 54% of the time. And that's kind of like the basis. He always goes back to that discussion. It's really good. Again, my only issue is that when he talks about the Sandusky case and the Nassar case, he gets really graphic with the testimony, and I don't think he needs to do that. So it's very triggering. Same thing when you read the Sandra Bland. He has the transcripts of the video. It's very triggering as well. So I want to give that trigger warning, and I wish that more people had those kind of trigger warnings in it because it gets it really difficult to get through. Other than that, it's a great book. It'll cause a lot of discussion for book clubs, classrooms. I think it'll really answer a lot of questions. He doesn't give you a solution, which I think you don't have to do that. I think if you just bring up the problem and then the discussion and debates that fall on both sides is not as black and white as we like to see. So definitely check it out. It makes you question yourself on several cases. And really, I've always questioned law enforcement because I've always felt like their judgment is always piss poor, particularly when it comes to DUI. When they do those sobriety tests, like they use, those have been debunked several times over. So definitely check it out. I highly recommend it. It's good for a book club. It's a dope nonfiction book. Word.
It's all a game. It's all a game.
So your boy Clifford strikes again. I actually didn't see that interview coming. I was wondering, because he said what he said on that podcast, and then it went viral. It was a hot take. I really thought it was gonna die down, and he didn't have nothing coming out other than a Netflix show that just came out. He didn't really have nothing to promote, so he couldn't do the rounds, right? He couldn't do the Breakfast Club rounds and all that. But I'm pretty sure when he gets on that one, he is going to talk about what he said. Anyway, Jada Pinkett Smith brings him onto the red table, which I wish I could watch. I don't have Facebook though, but shout out to Jada Pinkett Smith because that was a smart move on her part, and her mom's. Again, I didn't see the entire interview. I know it was a 2-part interview. I didn't see the entire. I saw clips of it, and then I saw the clips that they promoted, and then I saw clips that people actually recorded and put online to critique. So I'm gonna say in total, I probably saw maybe about 12 minutes of that interview, and I know it was a 2-parter. And anyway, and I also want to. I have a lot of trouble with it because I don't think T.I. is a troll. First of all, I'm a fan of T.I. I think he's a dope MC. I really think he's a dope MC. Very underrated, to be honest, right? He makes dope music. But I know that he's kind of rebranded himself as this leader of the black community. He's really come off as that with help from his friend Killer Mike, who also claims to be a black leader. They come out and say it consistently. And he's also, T.I. has also come out as kind of this intellectual. And I'm not saying that he can't be. I'm not, by no stretch of the imagination, I'm not saying that he can't be. We got to get out of this idea that you have to be in academia to be an intellectual. You don't, right? Shout out to Howard Cruz, right? The late great Howard Cruz. So that being said, I don't want to knock him for that. I do think that he's shout out to T with Queen and Jay, he's what's called level 1 woke. He read a few books here and there, saw a few documentaries, and he thinks he has all the answers and the solutions to the black community, right? Killer Mike kind of like co-signs him, so he's like, boom, he gets more props for that. What's the other dude's name? The one, he had that one hit record, and he's running around doing a God box. I forgot his name, from the South, but from Mississippi. But he's someone else that co-signs T.I. So now he's like, look, these brothers co-sign me, so I'm Super Hotep, right? But one thing I noticed about this discussion that, and it's funny because in the Jada Pinkett Smith interview, matter of fact, in the podcast and the Jada Pinkett Smith interview, he admits that his daughter told him not to talk about that situation. And he violated that response twice. And I think that, if anything, because we're over here debating what he's doing and all that stuff and what he can and cannot do as a father, and we're really talking about her, and she's not in the conversation, and I think that's fucked up. And I think being a parent, I'm entrusted with the privacy of my children, and and that's nonverbal. That's like they don't have to tell me that. That's just I'm their caretaker. They entrust me with their privacy unless they say otherwise, and I have to get what's called consent. And I don't think he got consent to be going around talking about that. And I think that's probably the biggest violation and that he has committed on top of the other ones. And I think that he needs to be called out on that. He really needs to be called down to the floor on that. I didn't see the whole interview. I don't know if Jada and them call him out on that. I'm assuming they did because it comes up that he didn't get permission. But also, I want to talk about agency. And when we talk about our daughters and our sisters, like they're women, they're human beings, and they have agency over their own bodies. It's like we have agency over their own body. No one's going to tell me what to do with my body, and I shouldn't tell my daughter or my sister or my niece what to do with their bodies, unless I'm like giving them like sex education, like telling them about sex education. If they ask me those questions, if I get consent from their parents for that, then yes, then I think that's okay when I'm educating on that. But outside of that, I don't need to be telling them nothing. I don't control their body. And I know that there was a time when marriage for the father, their daughter was their property until they got married, and they turned over that property, quote unquote property, to the husband. And that is a tradition that comes with marriage, particularly even outside of Christianity. And we're seeing that play out now. Now, the danger in what T.I. is saying and doing is not actually T.I., right? It's just that he represents what a lot of other fathers out there believe. There are a lot of men who are co-signing what T.I. is saying. And I think that's where we need to do those educational moments, right? I know I harp on Kanye a lot. Yeezy, right? I get on him a lot. And recently, he's been like on the rounds going to different churches and running his mouth and saying just the fly shit. Most recently, he was in your boy Joel Osteen's church running his mouth, just running at his mouth, man. And let me just say this, Joel Osteen has always been problematic, even before that hurricane fiasco. I've been telling y'all that. And first of all, I don't trust nobody that preaches with their eyes closed. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, but the thing about Kanye is that he sounds like a lot of our old uncles, right? You know, you had that uncle who used to wild out, bust pistols all the time, beat on women, all kinds of stuff, mistreat them. I'm not saying that Kanye does that. He might, I don't know. But and then all of a sudden they convert to Christianity, and now they want to tell you what you need to be doing, what you don't need to be doing. And it's just blows my mind, but it happens quite often. So I know he's like our beating post right now, which he shouldn't be, because again, he's going through like a lot of our uncles go through. And I really try to avoid discussing the mental health because, number one, I'm not a doctor. And number two is, frankly, we shouldn't be making diagnoses like that when we don't know what's going on. And we just don't know. And I'm not saying that he's not unraveling. I believe he is. But I know that his leaning towards Christianity is something that a lot of people do in those cases. So I see it happen often. I see a lot of people come that way after years of just wilding the fuck out. And again, it's your right to do that kind of stuff. But I just wanted to take note of that. So it's said that a lot of people do that. So what he's saying is not new. We like to think that what he's doing is not new, but people do it every day. A lot of these things that celebrities do, they do. Normal people do every day. We just, I guess, when a celebrity does it, it's magnified and we dissect it all the time. But we should be careful of saying, oh, he's crazy. We really should be careful of that. Because again, I see that happen often. But then again, maybe that's part of the delusion, right? Makes you wonder. So I want to talk about something that happened a few weeks ago, which on the internet is old news. But I saw that Lakeith Stanfield had beef with the Breakfast Club, and amongst other platforms, media platforms. And he did say that the Breakfast Club is anti-black. And I remember my middle son looked at me and I was like, yeah, actually, oftentimes Charlemagne, who's like a super troll, is anti-black as fuck. And people always look at me like, how, And let me just say this, because a lot of people think that because you're on a platform that deals with, black people and arts and culture and music, that you're automatically pro-black. Like that shit, like, what did Chuck D say? He said every brother ain't a brother, right? He's a troll. Charlemagne is a fucking troll, like for real. And unfortunately, the thing about the Breakfast Club is it's like one of the most listened to morning shows in the country. I think it's like in the top 10. So if you're black and you are promoting a movie or a book or a TV show or a documentary, you really kind of have to go onto the Breakfast Club. Like you kind of like have no choice. So they've had probably if anybody who's anybody that you like goes on that show and does an interview, does a 2-hour interview, right? Anybody you enjoy, whether they're a meme maker, a clothing designer, a director, a musician, like they all gotta go on it, with the exception of Oprah. Oprah and Tyler Perry, probably the only two people that don't have to go on there. Everyone else has to go there. Like you have to. It's a must. So I guess when people see it from that perspective, they'd be like, oh, they're pro-black because they promote that. Now, that part right there is not the Breakfast Club's fault. That is part of just the media as a whole. The white supremacist capitalist patriarchy that is the media is their fault, because there should be more than one platform, right? There should be more than one platform for black people to come out and promote whatever they need to do, right? On a national scale, there should be more than one, right? And I know people are going to mention Steve Harvey, but I kind of feel like Steve Harvey, he has a particular demographic, and I know those people. They're usually older than me. No disrespect at all, but whereas the Breakfast Club, they have a wider demographic. They reach more homes, and more people would watch them and listen to them, and even outside of the black community, they really listen to them, because again, it's like it's one of the top 10 listened to morning shows in the country. So that being said, that part that you have to go there to promote your shit on a mainstream level, on a national level, that's not particularly their fault. And I think that because of that platform, Charlemagne can get away, as he's a troll. He's a troll. He lives under the bridge. He was born and raised under the bridge. He's someone that abuses that platform. He really does. Angela Yee, I don't even know why she's on that show. And the DJ, I forgot the DJ's name, but I think he's the one. Both him and Angela Yee actually came up because they don't really contribute to the show. So kind of like they're on a free ride. It's really Charlemagne. If they didn't have Charlemagne, that show wouldn't be where it's at, because he's a show. That's where the money's at. I noticed that he writes books, and I noticed that he's on Fox News, he's on CNN, and they have him as a talking head. And some people look to him as an intellectual. And I know people that feel like he's an intellectual, even though he's never built himself as that. And they look at him as someone that has an opinion that needs to be heard. And he's real slick. He's real slick about it, because what he'll do is he'll just repeat what other people are saying. He don't really fuck with people like that. You know what I mean? I know people who mention some black women that he fucks with that are really dope. And to be quite honest, I don't think I don't know his personal life, but I sincerely believe that if those people weren't who they were, he wouldn't fuck with them. You know what I mean? Like he's not messing with people that are like cutting edge that are coming around the corner. You know what I'm saying? Like he's just whoever's hot, he fucks with. And I mean, and that's part of his job. But in that respect, he really undermines the work of a lot of black intellectuals. He really undermines the work of a lot of black artists, really, to be quite honest. Because when they get on his show, he really gets on them. And I know that show, because of that demographic, they want the juicy bits of gossip. They want to talk about the stuff that's out there that's quote unquote controversial. I get it, and there's a market for that, right? But I don't think he can play both sides of the field. But he's extremely problematic. He's a troll. He's a troll. He's a hardcore troll. And I think he gets off on that. I really, really think he gets off on that. He really, really, really does. And unfortunately, he has that platform where he can do that and get away with it. Word. Since we have seen episode 4 halfway through the 8 episodes from The Mandalorian, I guess it's time to do a review. Let me just say, Disney Plus, The Mandalorian meets the hype. It really, really, really does. First of all, just let me just say that they did not spare any pennies on this production. No, I mean, here's an example. Nick Nolte is in it, right? Nick Nolte plays this alien species, Ugnaught. He's an Ugnaught. You don't know it's him. Like when I heard his voice, I was like, "Oh, that's Nick Nolte. That got to be Nick Nolte." And I had to go on IMDb to look at it, and sure enough, I was right. But you couldn't tell it was him. Like they really spent money on this thing, so they didn't slouch on it. It really is. I'm hoping that this is what is going to come for the future Disney Plus stuff that they're going to have coming out from Marvel and as well as Star Wars. So I guess this level of production is what I'm expecting. So I'm hoping that Disney Plus keep it going. Anyway. 4 episodes in, it meets the hype. It's really entrenched in the Star Wars universe. I will say this: if you've never seen a Star Wars movie, you can actually jump into The Mandalorian. And yes, there are people out there that's never seen a Star Wars movie. I know a couple. You can actually just jump into it. If you just seen, like, for example, because I know that you have the original trilogy, the prequels, the new stuff that's come out, and then you have Star Wars, Clone Wars, and Rebels. That's all canon. You don't have to watch The Mandalorian. You don't have to watch. Excuse me. You don't have to watch Star Wars Rebels or Star Wars Clone Wars to get into it. You can jump right into it. And the story is kind of like it stands on its own, but it's still in the Star Wars mythos. It's still on there. And I think, to be quite honest, for example, if you want to know what's going on with the Mandalorians, I think it's important that you do watch the Clone Wars to find out what happened to them there, and then Star Wars Rebels to find out what's going on now. Personally, I never got a chance to watch Star Wars Rebels with the Disney Plus. I could watch that. So I am currently watching Star Wars Rebels, and I'm in season 2. And one of the main characters, Sabine, is a Mandalorian. So, and they actually go back to Conquered Dawn, actually, which is the moon of Mandalore, which is the planet where the Mandalorian's from. And it kind of gives you an update on where they're at. But again, you still don't have to watch it. So I think it's really dope. The pacing is amazing. I mean, it is a Western set in space. So the pacing is amazing. There's enough action and there's enough drama, enough dialogue, even though they haven't revealed who the Mandalorian is. They haven't even mentioned his name. Matter of fact, when he starts talking to the other Mandalorians, nobody mentions their name. So you just don't know. You get to meet everybody else, but you don't know their name. Yes, I know this is not a spoiler at this point, unless you're living under a rock. There is a Yoda baby. It is not the baby of Yoda, but you can tell that clearly is from his species, which has never been revealed before. And people are hoping that Disney Plus does reveal what planet or what species they are from in this series. There's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of discussion and debate online about it. Let me just say this. I think we've reached a critical mass of what the internet could do with this show because, it comes on Fridays. And, when I come home from work, and I turn on the TV, I go on YouTube usually first, and there's already like 30,000 videos about that particular episode that was just released that morning. So it's interesting to see the response of what people see and what they can do. There's a lot of Easter eggs, and he travels to different planets, so I think that's really cool. They mentioned a couple of other things, that's from the movies and stuff like that, so I thought that's really interesting. Overall, I'm clearly impressed. Pedro Pascal does his thing. And I know that it's kind of hard to gauge mood without seeing their facial expressions, but you kind of get it from his body posture and his attitude. I think he does a great job of this. Just to FYI, Carl Weathers is in this, Gina Carano, Werner Herzog, Nick Nolte, Taiki Waititi plays a droid, and Omid Aptahi, he's in it. So they had a stellar cast. So again, Disney does not slouch on this. So highly recommended. Really, really recommended. Anybody could watch it. The kid could watch it, an adult, and they all get a kick out of it. Hope that helps you out. Word. I know this is a topic that I've talked about before. Last year, I think, around this time, to be honest, around the holidays. And I know that Thanksgiving is about to come up next week as of this recording. And then you got Christmas a couple weeks after that. So people, for the health segment, I want to talk about, because this is what happens during Thanksgiving and Christmas. This is when like everybody and I hate to use the term cheat, what I mean? Like everybody cheats on their diet, quote unquote. And the reason why I say I don't like to use the word cheat is I don't believe in cheat days. I think if you want to eat like some ice cream, you should. It's not. If you like ice cream, you like ice cream. You're not cheating. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I don't really like using that term. Anyway, a lot of us actually deviate from the way we're supposed to be eating. And I know we get caught up. We're with family that we haven't seen in a while, friends we ain't seen in a while. And usually when we get together, food is usually the centerpiece to that. So everybody comes to eat, and what ends up happening is we like get seconds. Even I ain't gonna lie, even I get seconds on those days when I usually don't. I normally don't. I don't at all. So what I always tell people to do is just watch your portions. Don't heap your plate. And if you do heap your plate, then don't go for those seconds. I know my thing is like I like dessert, so I try to like save some room for dessert. I really literally do that. But what I tell people is, even when you're just regularly eating, you should watch your portions. You know what I mean? And then if you want more, then go back and get more. But just watch your portions, because what happens is we binge eat during the holidays. A lot of it is because we just overcook a lot of stuff. At family gatherings, events, weddings, etc., they always bring more food than people. It makes more sense because you don't want to run out of food in the middle of your joint. You know what I mean? So we end up eating the leftovers, and we kind of like forced to eat the leftovers. So what I tell people is like, maybe don't cook as much. Like really don't cook as much. And there's a way to do it. There's a way to figure out, RSVP, who's coming. But we always make more than we need. And so that way you don't have to worry about stuff in your face. Because what happens is after Thanksgiving, we're eating leftovers for like a week, right? So maybe like buying less portions, cooking less portions, and then watching it and watching how you eat and then paying attention to it. Because really, and I know we all like to do at Thanksgiving, we like to sit and unbutton our top buttons, you know what I mean? But really, it's not healthy. And really, when I look at like Thanksgiving and Christmas, look at that as just an experience, like enjoying time with your peoples. And you don't have to stuff your face. You know what I mean? Hope that helps out. Word. For the shout outs for this episode, definitely shout out to Lexi of the Windy City. It's the Windy City, right? Yeah, Chi-Town, the Windy City. My bad. Long-time supporter, always showing love, always bigging up my show, and definitely hitting up both Twitters. I appreciate you for that. Shout out to my book club, the Dayton Noir Book Club, doing big things. 2 more books to go in 2019, and in 2020s will be bigger. We're going to have more people in the group. And definitely shout out to the Gem City Market. Finally broke ground on that joint. They're gonna open up in 2020, and we're gonna do it for the people. Word is born. Once again, party people, another episode of Where My Killer Tape At. I want to thank everybody for really checking us out, man. Love y'all. I get a lot of comments. A lot of people, send me DMs and they tell me how much they love the show, how much they love my voice. I really appreciate that. It means a lot to me. Do me a solid, man. Do me a solid, y'all. This is the dope part about podcasting. Like, they look at subscription numbers, right? So what I want you to do is, I want you to talk to your coworker. I want you to talk, well, maybe not your coworkers. I don't want you to get fired for listening to me. But talk to your peoples, talk to your mans, talk to your womens. You know what I mean? And say, yo, do me a favor. Subscribe to my man's podcast. I'm on, Apple's, what's that called? Apple Podcasts. I'm on Google Podcasts. I'm on Stitcher. I'm on SoundCloud. Have them go on one of those platforms and hit that subscribe button, man. Because I need to get more subscribers. Word is born, man. That's how cats get money, man. And I'm not saying that I'm going to take that money and buy a Bentley. You know what I mean? It's going to go to the show because I still need more equipment. I still need a venue. I still need a website. I don't even have a website, yo. And I shouldn't be laughing at shit like that. But, yo, come through for me, man. Anyway, if you want to continue the discussion, you can go online. You could put hashtag where my killer tape back, killer spelled Killa. If you want to book me for a workshop panel discussion, I do have an honorarium. Hit me up on the Gmail. It's DanTresOMi, DanTres is in Sam, OMI at Gmail. If you just want to say what's up, you can hit me up on the official Twitter podcast, official Twitter account for the podcast, which is going to be at Omi's Podcast, OMIS Podcast. I am the DanTresOMi. Also, if you just want to hit me up, my main Twitter account, which is lit, is at DanTresOMi, DanTresOMi. Word is born. Thank y'all. I can't just say that enough. I love y'all. Word.